and I'm hoping you're not going to ask me who that is at this early stage in the day. But I would like, if we go through the scenarios, in Bundoran, you have a very strong candidate in Philip McGlynn for Fianna Fáil, who has mounted a terrific campaign. Equally, you have Mickey McMahon from Sinn Féin, who came very close to it the last time. He had 970 first preference votes. If there was a different sequence of elimination in 2014, Mickey would have won the seat.
Yeah.
So anyone that's that close can't be discounted to be a serious contender.
And he hasn't spent the last few years sitting on his hands either.
Mickey never sits on his hands. That's one thing. And he's not my political party. But Mickey is a very active community worker, very active in the community and on issues that matter right across the board. Likewise, we have Philip, who has great experience from the town council in Bundoran and comes from a family that has one of the best political machines in local government, that being the McAniff family. So that hasn't gone away either.
And Sean McNiff was a legendary colossus.
He was a colossus.
The absolute word. For years and years and years in local politics. And does that vote still exist there? Is that McNiff machine
it's my view
still
that
there?
The McAniff machine is very clearly there. It was visible in the course of the election. They've mounted a fabulous campaign led by Brian McAniff and Philip around the area. I can't see that vote disappear overnight. But in local politics, it's the person that remains on top, and you could be on top of the vote just by 5 more than the next person. So whoever comes to the top in Bundoran, be that Philip, be that Mickey McMahon, whoever gets that edge there is in contention for a seat.
And you're seeing it probably more likely that Philip or Mickey McMahon are going to come out of Bundoran rather than the independent Dermot Doherty?
Dermot Doherty is going to poll extremely well. But when you're up against a tight race and a competitive race between two massive party machines, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin, you're going to be very tightly squeezed and you're going to find it very difficult to get oxygen over there.
I was having a discussion last night with some well-informed people who were guesstimating that Dermot Doherty would do 400 first preferences.
I wouldn't know the lie of the land that well to call it, but I would expect Philip and Mickey to be near in the top and Dermot to decide. And this is key. It's Dermot Doherty's votes that will decide between Mickey McMahon and Philip McGlynn, which of them edge forward to the next stage. And the next stage is important because we're basing possibly this discussion on the principle that there will be a seat in Bundoran, not automatically guaranteed at all.
No.
In fact, Sean McAniff...
There hasn't been a seat for the last term.
And Sean McAniff was the only person that ever secured comfortably a Bundoran seat, which he did for 50 years.
Because is there actually numerically enough people in Bundoran to carry a seat? Bundoran needs Ballyshannon behind it, and what Sean McNiff always did was bring Lahey, Ballantrae all the way through, which is now split between Micheál Naughton and Philip McGlynn.
Yeah, no, there isn't sufficient votes in Bundoran. I remember the late Sean McAniff saying that his success always was based on that little extra vote that he got between Rossnowla and Ballyshannon, right out to Clyhore. So the scenario I was trying to put together was there's 2 battles there inside one war, and the battle is who comes out of Bundoran strongest. Then he has to contend with who comes out of Ballyshannon strongest. And you have a situation similar to Bundoran that you have no sitting councillor of any political persuasion there. It's a complete vacuum.
Yeah.
And you have Barry Sweeney, who's trying to replace Barry O'Neill.
Yeah.
Good contender, strong contender. Ballyshannon has a tradition of voting Fine Gael in the town councils.
From the late Jim White, yeah.
And then the late Jim White, that vote is there. You have Billy Grimes, who's an extreme hard-working community person from a Fianna Fáil gene pool, and he has a following.
Nearly sounds like you'd have him back, Brendan.
Well,
if he comes with a council seat.
It's too early in the day to issue invitations.
But you're not ruling out the possibility.
And so the contender that comes out of Bundoran has to meet whoever's coming out of Ballyshannon, because there is a possibility, depending on what happens in Donegal, that one of the candidates only will get elected between Ballyshannon and Bundoran. It depends solely then on what happens in relation to the multitude of candidates that you have in and around Donegal town and the sequence of eliminations there. Well, you could easily only have one councillor down there, and it could be a race between Billy Grimes and Philip McGlynn and Mickey McMahon. I haven't heard as much and I'm not being critical of
Mhm.
Barry Sweeney. It could well be that he's in contention. My view is he should be in contention. The Fine Gael vote hasn't vaporized.
Mm.
So you have four coming to the
Yeah.
top there.
So are you writing off at this point Valerie McNulty, Cyril Brennan, those non-party people? Well, obviously Cyril Brennan, people for profit. Are you writing them off already?
I'm at a situation where I'm judging it on what happened in my area in 2004, when you're coming at an area with a complete blank canvas.
Mm.
There's no anchor tenant there. There's no sitting
Yeah.
councillor there. So the parties are going to throw all they have at it.
Mhm.
Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, Fine Gael. And that does suck up the oxygen. And the independent candidates and the smaller parties will find it extremely difficult in there to get traction, because the main parties are pounding the doors to get every vote possible.
Mm.
And then also, there is a realization in each and every voter that went to the polls yesterday in Ballyshannon and Bundoran and Rossnowla, folks, we have no one. There's no one on this ballot sheet before us
Mm.
that's a sitting councillor. And they will say to themselves, some of them, who's our best bet to get elected?
Mm.
And that's when the smaller parties and the independents get badly squeezed, because we're coming from really a 2.5 party state, although it's not that anymore. But when you're in a tight battle, there's always that historical perception that they go back to those
are
that best win.
Are the party families there anymore? As in, mum and dad are always voted Fianna Fáil, so the kids are going to do that now, and whoever the party was. Are people not turning away from that now?
It's probably one of the best questions asked so far. No offense to you, Greg, but it's only early in the morning. You're
I
a late
know.
starter.
Well, that's how the day's going to pan out. Don't you worry. Revenge is a dish best served, my friend.
It's amazing when you're canvassing, you'll go to a house and they'll say, well, we're traditionally Fianna Fáil or we're traditionally Fine Gael,
Yeah.
but we vote this way and we vote that way. And that is true. There isn't a house, I think, in Donegal that didn't know what they were traditionally.
Mm.
Whether they're voting along that pattern now or not remains to be seen, to a lesser extent. But when it is a close run thing, when you're fighting for party and community and area, that is when voters gravitate back to their main party in order to strengthen the representation they have in their area. So I'm predicting that the battles in that area, and I don't mean to offend the other candidates, they've fought tooth and nail and fought very hard for their votes. But I think the dynamic of the day in Ballyshannon and Bundoran is going to work against them. And the people of that area, without second guess what they actually did in the ballot boxes, are going to vote strategically to get seats back in that area. And they have the numbers to do so.
Moving further north then into Donegal town, if you take it that you're saying probably a 3-horse race in the Bundoran Ballyshannon area, I think is what I'm reading into
Yes.
that. Micheál McMahon, Philip McGlynn and Billy Grimes. And if you move further north, Donegal town, again, Micheál Naughton from a Lahey perspective, you've got Justin Coughlin, Donegal town, you've got John Boyle from Brookles, you've got Tom Conahan in Donegal town. How do you see the dynamic in the Donegal town area?
It's very unique because you're contesting this election in the Donegal town and environs area. And I take in Inver with that because the Inver vote is gravitating more towards Donegal town.
Coughlin country, as it would have been
in
known.
recent times. So, and so the situation here is you have 3 seats, but 3 seats were not elected there. The McAniff seat, through a party decision of Fianna Fáil, was transferred from Bundoran to the environs of Donegal town.
And Micheál Naughton, this is really his first time out.
Well, he contested the last election and polled 590 votes. So this is his first time defending a seat. But the context of what I'm looking at here is that Donegal town is fighting this election with 3 sitting councillors. Councillor Maguire, Councillor Conahan and Councillor Naughton. They will find it difficult to hold those 3 seats because they weren't elected there. One of them was transferred because of a party decision taken by Fianna Fáil to transfer a Bundoran seat to Donegal town. So there's a massive dynamic there. And, you know, if you go back to the 2009 election, Donegal town struggled to take 1 seat. and there was a period that there no incumbent within the town environs.
Why is that? One would think that there's got to be a vote or two out of Donegal town. There's got to be a seat or two out of Donegal town.
There's a few, just because a town has a larger population doesn't automatically assume that they have power to elect. Because in the towns, and you'll see it here in Letterkenny, I think Letterkenny probably will have the lowest turnout in the county. The urban areas don't vote as well as the rural areas. You looked at Glencolmkill last night and they had 68% of a turnout. You would never get that replicated in any of the town boxes in Donegal. But of course, a higher percentage in a rural area doesn't mean more votes when you're working from a larger base in Donegal town. So in Donegal town, we have the 3 sitting councillors. That is going to be an awful battleground, and I think that'll probably be the cause of a recount of it.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, somebody had to mention it straight away.
Do you think there are too many candidates? Do you think, Thomas, based in Donegal town, that there are too many?
And Thomas Pringle joining us, also our panelist for the day, and is going to be here with us. Thomas,
I don't think you can ever have too many candidates. I mean, the only people that say that there's too many candidates are the candidates themselves. So I mean, it's a democratic process, and people are entitled to put themselves forward. And that's the fact that there is a lot of candidates shows that how much competition there is there, and I think that's very good and that's very healthy all round. It makes our job a bit more difficult, I suppose, in terms of deciding or saying who's going to win or who's going to come out the winners out there. But that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes the count very worthwhile.
And following on from Brendan's point, Brendan was saying Donegal town. We'd been analysing sort of the south of the county, the Bundoran Ballyshannon area, and looking at who's coming out of there. Brendan saying Donegal town could be a bit of a bloodbath in terms of the candidates, and really coming down to individual last votes, small margins. How do you see the Killybegs in through area? How has that looking? Because am I right in thinking there's more candidates in that area than there ever has been?
I'm not sure if there's more than there ever has been or not.
It seems like a lot.
Well, there's more candidates than there ever has been in the Donegal electoral area anyway, because I think there's 19 candidates this time round, which is the third highest in the country. I think the first time I ran in 2000 or in 1999. That's a while back now, but I mean,
remember it, which is scary.
There was 15 candidates, and so there always has been a lot of candidates, I suppose. And I think the Donegal electorate area is going to split into 3 separate fights, really. You have Ballyshannon, Bundoran, Donegal town, and Killybegs, and how there could be 3 individual elections there, really. So it'll just be interesting to see how they all develop and see how the votes come out.
Niamh Kennedy and Killybegs. I mean, she's under the independent flag, no more than yourself, Thomas. She's, I think, very visible. I think she's ran a good campaign. I think she seems to have her name out there. Good name recognition. Pat the Cope Gallagher was telling us about how important name recognition is. How do you think she's going to fare?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's been a councillor for the last 5 years as well, which is bound to help her out as well. I think overall, probably, I think her vote will go down over the electoral area from 5 years ago, but I think probably she will probably be okay. By virtue of the fact that she has Killybegs, I don't know how, depends on much how Emer McGuinness can eat into that vote in Killybegs area, and how the Killybegs breaks down will be important. I think Niamh will probably make it because of the fact that she has 5 years experience and 5 years going there, and I think people will say that they're better off to have a councillor than not have a councillor, and that'll benefit Niamh, I think.
John Boyle, long sitting councillor in that area, lost out very narrowly last time out, back in the race this time. Very interested in both your views, because I think you both would have shared ballot papers with him over the years, if I'm not mistaken. Seasoned politician. Thomas, is John going to get his way back into Donegal County Council?
Yeah, John was elected the first time with me in 1999. I think that the first time he was elected, and it's amazing to see him back again. I mean, his energy knows no bounds. I'm amazed myself. I certainly hope when I get to John's age that I'll be putting my feet up and saying, taking a nice hand in.
77 years old.
77 is it? Yeah, fair play to him. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it actually works out for him. There is the fact that there is another candidate in Duncan Ely that could possibly squeeze him as well, and so that could have some impact on it, and how he does it at Killybegs will be important for John as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And John probably has the difference is that he'll border that Donegal town area and Killybegs and will get votes everywhere. So that could be interesting to see in terms of over the whole electoral area. And there will be a number, one or two candidates that probably will get votes all over the area, and that will benefit them, I think.
Brendan, John Boyle specifically?
Well, I have to say, first of all, John has mounted a great campaign. He's a fabulous canvas from Glencolmkill all the way to Donegal. Funny, going back to the point that I had the last time, when we were moving our way from Bundoran through Donegal, what happens in Donegal is going to have an impact on what happens west of there, be it in Dunganely or be it in Killybegs. If Donegal can hold on to the 3 seats, then there's going to be no significant change west of Donegal. But if one of the seats in Donegal were to get into difficulty,
which you feel is likely,
it on the sheer numbers of it, on the sheer maths of it, Daniel, you would think, yes, it's going to be hard to hold 3 seats in Donegal at a time when there's no seat left, councillor contest in Ballyshannon and Bundoran. And then traditionally in Thomas's time, when I fought 2 elections with you, Thomas, we had 2 and 3 candidates west of Donegal. So the battle here is, does the second seat go down to Ballyshannon and Bundoran, or does the second seat go west of Inverbridge to Dunganely or Killybegs?
But the most likely dynamic that one of the seats out of Donegal town is going to go one direction or the
or
other.
stay in Donegal, of course. I'm not saying that it's gone.
Well, as you can see, it's all up in the air.
It's all up in the air, and it is. And look, it's politics is a game of speculation, and I think Mags has a plan to try and get you two gentlemen to commit your predictions to paper before too long. But we'll come back to that in 2 seconds. But just specifically on John Boyle, do you think he'll make it?
John, my belief is that John Boyle is the strongest candidate that Fine Gael have in this election. And it'll be determined on the sequence of elimination from John McNulty and Barry Sweeney. John McNulty is going to do extremely well in Kilcar, Glencolmkill. He's going to poll extremely well. There's no doubt about that. He's the strongest of the local candidates in those 2 parishes. I've been a candidate in there for 3 council elections. I polled extremely well. But any candidate from Kilcar, Glencolmkill has the worst transfer record in the entire electoral area.
If I recall, you weren't particularly transfer friendly.
No. Maybe I'm not friendly anyway. But it's not, I would like to think it's not personal, but the facts of the matter, it's a geographical barrier.
Yeah.
And you'll see today that votes will gravitate around the Ballyshannon-Bundoran candidates, and then some of it will drift north to Donegal. Not much, maybe 15-20% as the counts go on, very little. Same in Donegal town. Donegal town vote drifts between Donegal and parish of Inver. And then Dunganely and Killybegs have quite a good transfer record there too. So my belief at this early stage, and I'll probably make a prediction foolishly enough at this early stage, that I think John Boyle is the most serious contender Fine Gael have in this election.
Okay. Interesting to see Thomas as a resident of Killybegs, just as a normal Joe living in the town. What are the issues in Killybegs? What has been the sway factor here, and what do you see as being the likely outcome in Killybegs town itself? Where's that vote going to go?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that probably the outcome will be that Niamh will probably retake the seat by virtue of the fact that she's a sitting councillor and will benefit from that way there. So obviously the Finter Bridge has been a big issue locally in terms of the election, in terms of the public campaign and stuff like that there as well. And I suppose representation and the type of representation that's been in the town has been the issue that people have had. And I think Brendan's right in terms of the candidates and through like Sean O'Byrne and McNulty, their votes, they're crucified by geography beats them, and they haven't got enough of a vote. Even if there was one candidate who got all the votes and through, he still hasn't enough of a vote to carry him through.
Which is similar to the Bundoran predicament that you said Sean McNiff said Bundoran won't get you elected. You know, Kilcar won't get you elected. You have to go broader. Interesting to see how that's going to pan out. I think we do have to take a little break and Max, there's a little bit of housekeeping to do to keep us on the straight and narrow here. Our panelists, just to remind everybody, Thomas Pringle, TD, and Brendan Byrne from Fianna Fáil, not contesting his first election for some time. Max.
Yeah, and of course our broadcast today brought to you by the Sandhouse Hotel and Marine Spa in Rosnala. And just to let you know that for the latest and exclusive tally figures for Sligo and Leitrim counts, go to oceanfm.ie, click on the follow the count and click on view tally for figures from Sligo and Leitrim. And to update these figures as they happen, just refresh your computer by pressing the F5 button, or if a mobile phone, just scroll down. And remember, if you want to listen to what's happening at the Leitrim count, go to oceanfm.ie and click and follow the count and go to the Leitrim Listen Live link. And if you want to watch what is going on at any of our counts in Sligo, Leitrim, or indeed with ourselves here in Donegal, click on oceanfm.ie, go to follow the count and go to watch live for either of the three count centres. And you can also listen to our Donegal coverage, exclusive coverage here from the Count Centre in Letterkenny on our 105 FM and 94.7 FM frequencies. We'll take a break and rejoin us back here in the Ora Centre in a few minutes.
Welcome back to the Aura Centre here in Letterkenny for our Ocean FM exclusive election coverage. My name's Daniel Brown, the team here today, Cian Hamilton, keeping our technically perfect broadcast going. We have Therese Madden, roving reporter. She's out and about on the count floor this morning. And we have Margaret Carr-Flynn, who is co-presenting with me. And my panelist this morning, delighted to be joined by Thomas Pringle, TD. Thomas is first elected in the 2011 general election, successfully retaining his seat in 2016. Previously a member of Donegal County Council, he has walked over these hot coals before. He was elected on 3 separate occasions, 1999, 2004 and 2009. He knows the pain that these candidates are going through. Brendan Byrne, also a former Donegal County Councillor. He's been head-to-head with Thomas on many's the debating platform. First elected in 2004, spent 10 years on the council before losing his seat narrowly, and we just spoke about that lack of vote transfer friendliness from that Kilcar in through area. Lost out in 2014. He was chairman of Donegal County Council 2009, 2010, and also a former chairman of the Donegal VEC. Former Taoiseach Mary Coughlin will be joining us tomorrow when we're down in the Bosco Centre. We're here in the Aura Centre in Letterkenny. The votes from around the county have been brought to the Aura Letterkenny, and the boxes are open. The votes are being separated. Once those votes have been separated, the local election votes are going to go back into the boxes, back down to their respective areas, and we're going to be all over those like a rash all day tomorrow. Brendan, very quickly, just and I want to give you guys a minute to gather your thoughts, but very quickly, just give the listeners where are we at now in terms of boxes being open, what's happening here, and what are we hoping for?
Well, they started the tallies about 10 minutes late at 9:10. The first area to be tallied was the Buncrana municipal area. They're now 3/4 way through the Carndonagh municipal area. There was 31 boxes in Buncrana to be tallied. There's 27 in Carndonagh. After that, then they're going to proceed to Letterkenny, which has got 40 ballot boxes to be tallied. And then Milford. Donegal, unfortunately, is well down in the afternoon, so we won't have any trends of how the people voted in the Donegal municipal area probably until 2:30 or 3. So at the minute, looking at the tallies for Buncrana and Carndonagh, I only had a cursory look at them. It looks like the green wave even extends into Inishowen. The Green candidate is polling extremely well there.
And you're talking about the Europeans?
In the Europeans, yes. And then because of the council election and the complexities of all the candidates and the geographics, you couldn't predict yet until you have a full look at the entire tally for either Buncrana or Carndonagh.
We were starting to squeeze a few trends out of you. Thomas, we were talking about the Donegal electoral area, what might happen in the 3 separate battlegrounds, South Donegal, the Bundoran Ballyshannon area, Donegal Town, those 3 seats that are there now, will they stay there? And then west over Killybegs, Kilcar, etc. Need Kennedy, will she hold her seat? Interesting piece of analysis you were bringing to my attention just when we were on the break there. It is seen South Donegal is the most
competitive constituency in the country, according to Adrian Kavanagh.
So listeners, prick up your ears now. What we're going to be covering is seen as the most competitive in the country. Thomas, tell us.
Yeah, apparently Adrian Kavanagh, who is a lecturer in Maynooth University, a geography lecturer who specialises in elections and bizarrely also in Eurovision, apparently. But he specialises in elections and looking at how elections are going to break down. And he just had a post on Twitter last night that he estimates that the Donegal electoral area will be the most competitive area in the country, based on the number of candidates and the fact that how many incumbents there is and stuff like that. He has all the permutations. I don't know exactly how he does it, but this is what he's arrived with.
Well, we might delve into that a little bit further. And let's remind the listeners why this is so competitive. Who are these people? So I'm going to take a very deep breath and I'm going to run through the 19 candidates that are here for the 6 seats. So 19 candidates contesting 6 seats, as you've just heard from Thomas Pringle, considered the most competitive electoral environment in the country. That's Donegal South. So we have Tom Conahan, independent in Donegal Town. Councillor Tom Conahan is a former Cathaoirleach of Donegal Municipal District and former mayor of Donegal Town. He's an independent councillor, first elected in 2014, after missing out narrowly enough in 2009. He was elected on the 10th count with 2,117 votes, taking the second seat in the Donegal Municipal District. And that should give you some idea of what is ahead. He got the second seat on the 10th count. There was 13 counts in total last time out. Brendan Byrne earlier suggested we'd be on at least 17 counts in the Donegal area, and we're going to be here, I think, well into Monday. Noel Jordan, Sinn Féin from Mount Charles, Councillor Noel Jordan, sitting councillor, up for re-election after being elected for the first time also 2014. He works as a groundsman for JJ Contracts, and he's chairman of the local community centre and also chair of Mount Charles Community Development. He's a former Lascahirlock of Donegal County Council. Also from Sinn Féin, Micheál McMahon, a town man of my own from Bundoran. Bundoran-based Micheál McMahon was elected onto Bundoran Town Council in 1999 and held the position for 15 years before the council was abolished in 2014. He has been an active community worker for many years and has been involved in numerous and also held the title as Mayor of Bundoran. If elected, some of the issues at the top of his agenda that he's claiming are expanding and developing the tourism in South Donegal, investment in services for older people and those with disabilities, and the provision of social and affordable housing. And we did hear analysis earlier that Micheál McMahon seen as a strong contender coming out of Bundoran, but it's a very competitive space. John McNulty, Fine Gael from Kilcar. John McNulty is running for election as a Fine Gael candidate for the second time after losing out in 2014. John from Kilcar and is the Fine Gael Development Officer in Donegal. He's self-employed with businesses in Carrick and Stranraer, heavily involved in the GAA and in the local community in southwest Donegal. But we did hear Brendan Byrne earlier suggesting that John Boyle was probably the strongest candidate coming out of the Fine Gael ticket in Donegal. Billy Grimes, an independent candidate, but a former member of Fianna Fáil and seen by some as being Fianna Fáil in all but name. He's from Ballyshannon, he's fought a strong campaign. Billy Grimes is a retired lecturer from LYIT. He was in the Tourism College in Killybegs. He ran a successful business in Ballyshannon for 10 years and was a former Ballyshannon Town Councillor for 20 years. During that time, he was elected Mayor of Ballyshannon on 2 occasions. He also served on numerous boards and committees over the years and was appointed as a Peace Commissioner in 1998. A former Fianna Fáil member, Billy recently left the party. Some would suggest because he wasn't nominated as a candidate and is running as an independent for the first time. Barry Sweeney from Fine Gael, an interesting one to watch in that there is a Fine Gael seat in Ballyshannon, or there has been up until this point. Outgoing councillor Barry O'Neill, former classmate of mine, is standing aside, and Barry Sweeney is taking up the mantle. Barry Sweeney is the Fine Gael candidate for the election. He's a well-known artist and community activist from Ballyshannon. He's been involved in the Ballyshannon Regeneration Group over the past number of years. He's a graduate of the University of Ulster and is known for his iconic portraits of Rory Gallagher, another famous son of Ballyshannon. Among his priorities, the fight for the fire stations in Ballyshannon and Bundoran, and to reverse the boundary changes which occurred in 2013, which obviously saw Bundoran Ballyshannon fall into the Sligo-Leitrim constituency. John J. Boyle of Fine Gael, who was graciously just moments ago referred to by Brendan on our panel here as the strong front runner on the Fine Gael ticket. John Boyle was first elected to Donegal County Council in 1999. He narrowly lost in the last local elections in 2014. He's from Crokermore in Dunkeneely and is now making a comeback to contest the upcoming election. He's 77 years old, and you heard Thomas Pringle earlier refer to his great level of energy and enthusiasm at 77 years, and be continuing in politics, he says, until the day he dies. Cyril Brennan, People Before Profit from Ballyshannon. Cyril running for election for the first time, also on the European ticket, and people might have seen him probably for the first time on prime time the other evening. He's a national coordinator of the Still Waiting health campaign, and Cyril's a native of Ballyshannon in County Donegal, where he works in the local community hospital. Cyril's main goals, he says, are revolving around the wish to change what he describes as a chronic lack of infrastructure in the area, including the loss of basic health, Garda and school services. Justin Coughlin, an independent from Donegal town. Justin is running as an independent candidate for the first time in the local elections. He's been a director of elections for other candidates in previous elections, and he was born in Ballyshannon but's living in Donegal town for the past 37 years. If elected, improvement to the bus services, improved infrastructure and tourism are the elements on his ticket. Sean O'Byrne, an independent from Kilcar. Again, we heard Brendan Byrne earlier say how hard and transfer unfriendly that area is. Sean is a native of Crove in the parish of Kilcar. He's been active in the community development for many years, formerly a member of the Donegal County Council Cultural Committee and also of the County Donegal Tourism Sectoral Forum, and a member of the Kilcar Parish Council since 2004. Micheál Naughton of Fianna Fáil. People will know Micheál from his success with the ladies' football in Donegal, but also, I suppose, remember that he was co-opted on to what was seen as the Sean McNiff seat after the death of the late Sean McNiff, that colossus of local politics. Councillor Micheál Naughton currently serves as Cathaoirleach of the Donegal Municipal District and is seeking re-election to the County Council. He is the general manager of the 4-star Clanry Hotel here in Letterkenny. He's been involved in numerous boards throughout his career in promoting Donegal to both the domestic and international markets. He's, as of reference, the former Ulster Ladies GAA president and his former Donegal Ladies senior manager, and was manager of the All-Ireland winning ladies team. Niamh Kennedy, an independent from Killybegs. You heard Thomas Pringle, our panellist, just moments ago predicting that Niamh will retain her seat, but maybe on a slightly lower vote. Councillor Niamh Kennedy is sitting independent councillor who is seeking re-election to Donegal County Council. She topped the poll in 2014 with 1,712 first preference votes and was the first councillor in the Donegal electoral area to be elected. We're not sure if that's going to be the same. Thomas Pringle predicting her vote will be down, but that she will still be safe. So she will come back to Thomas to see if he thinks she might still top the poll even with a lower number. He's shaking his head at me here, but we'll get that on air shortly. Dermot Doherty, independent, again from Bundoran, my own hometown. Dermot is a Bundoran-based businessman making a return to politics. He's a former member of Sinn Féin, but standing as an independent candidate. Previously a member of Bundoran Town Council before its abolition in 2014. And conversation earlier that we had here about whether Dermot would be strong enough to come out of Bundoran as a front runner, whether he would damage the party candidates being Philip McGlynn and Micheál McMahon respectively from their different parties. So very interesting to see how that pans out. And then moving again to Bundoran, Philip McGlynn from Fianna Fáil. Philip formerly served on Bundoran Town Council for 2 terms over 10 years and was chairman on 2 occasions. He's the manager of the Great Northern Hotel in Bundoran for the past 39 years and also sits on a number of boards in County Donegal and is involved with local GAA and obviously married to Mary McGlynn is and the McNiff, Mary McNiff, and very closely linked to the McNiff family. Roger Meehan of Fianna Fáil, Dunkeneely. Roger Meehan is a Fianna Fáil candidate in the upcoming elections. A 38-year-old father of 3. He's a community activist for the retention of services for communities in rural Ireland. Roger is currently the chairperson of Nave Ulton GAA Club and a committee member of My Local Community Centre. He was also deeply involved in the Donegal Dunkeneely Post Office retention campaign. In Emer McGuinness, a Fianna Fáil candidate in Killybegs. Emer is a Donegal native and running for election for the first time as a Fianna Fáil candidate. She lives in Killybegs with her husband Gillen and their son. Emer is currently the Donegal Cooperative Livestock Manager and has been involved in numerous community groups, including being chairperson of the Killybegs Community Council and chairperson of the Donegal Marts Association, very well known to the rural march goers of County Donegal. And Thomas Pringle earlier, when we asked him for his view from the ground in Killybegs, said she is a threat to Niamh Kennedy's vote and is definitely going to impact there and maybe split that Killybegs vote somewhat. Porrick Kennedy, an independent from Donegal town. He's the current mayor of Donegal. He's continuing a strong family tradition. Many here will remember his late father, Peter, and who was again a colossus on the local politics scale, and his brother Jonathan both served as councillors for Fianna Fáil, but he's running as an independent candidate. And again, we might get some insights from Brendan Byrne on our panel in relation to why he wasn't a member or staying within the Fianna Fáil family. Porrick founded the Donegal Town Community Band and is a member of the Donegal Bay Rowing Club. Valerie McNulty, an independent from Ballyshannon, and is a community activist. She's a first-time independent candidate. She's worked on numerous community campaigns in the past, including the fight against water charges. She was involved in numerous campaigns against family home evictions, fracking, anti-water charges, and more. Our election coverage here this morning has already suggested that maybe a candidate like herself not likely to come out of that very competitive Bundoran area, but a lot to see yet. And then finally, our 19th candidate on that ticket, Donegal Town Councillor Seamus Maguire. He's a teacher in St. Columba's in Stranraer and became a councillor for the first time in January of this year when he was co-opted onto Donegal County Council following the surprise resignation of John Campbell. This will be the first time he's contesting an election. So like Micheál Naughton, he's inherited the seat and now having to earn it. So those are our 19 candidates. Our panelists, Thomas Pringle, Brendan Byrne, my co-presenter, Margaret Carr-Flynn, our roving reporter, Therese Madden, who's keeping us all up to date on social media, and Cian Hamilton, who's keeping us all on air. That's the Ocean FM team here in the Aura Centre in Letterkenny. And Brendan, what's happening for people now? We're moving through the boxes. The boxes are here. They've been brought in from around the county from 9:15 or thereabouts this morning. They've been starting to open the boxes. What can we see? What can we know at this stage?
Well, it's very difficult to take any analysis. They're segregating the ballots, which allows the tally men to take a tally. The Buncrana completed. They've almost completed Carndonagh, and they'll be proceeding then to Letterkenny. And so the trends in the Euros indicate that there is a move towards the Green Party. The Fine Gael vote is holding, the Sinn Féin vote is holding, and the Fianna Fáil vote has declined. That would be my analysis of the European tallies. In relation to the council, it's very difficult to take any kind of analysis on the council election based on the tallies until they're fully completed and you have an order of merit and who has secured what in relation to the entire tally on an electoral area basis.
But you're not seeing or predicting or thinking at this stage that what you're conceding and what Patrick O'Gallagher conceded earlier was a very bad outing for Fianna Fáil in the European elections. You don't see that transferring to the locals?
Well, based on what I had tallied there in relation to Newton Cunningham and Buncrana Town for Paul Kenny and for Rena Donny, two sitting Fianna Fáil councillors, both of those seats seem secure. I didn't get a chance or an opportunity to look at Carndonagh. I expect Councillor Martin McDermott, who topped the poll there the last time with a surplus of 400 votes, to hold on to that seat. There was an effort by the party to take a second seat there, but I have no figures available at this point in time. But what I am saying is what has happened in the European, and it's a collapse of the Fianna Fáil vote, so far hasn't transponded into the local elections.
And can we extrapolate from what happens in Inishowen to what might happen in Donegal when those boxes start to open?
You couldn't extrapolate something that happened 5 miles up the road to what's going to happen 5 miles down the road.
Never mind 100 miles. Okay. Thomas, from your perspective, I mean, you're here today as part of our panel, but what are you keeping an eye out for here with your own political hat on? What are you hoping for? What does a good day look like for you here in the Aura Centre in Letterkenny? And maybe looking at those early trends coming out of the exit polls, which shows this huge swing towards the Green Party.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like that swing has continued through the European tallies. And I just by basically throwing my eye over some of the boxes, the Green candidate has been polling well and so on, which you wouldn't have expected normally. So that's positive for them. I don't think there's a Green candidate in any of the elected areas up there, so that's not going to transfer through to the council vote. It looks like, as Ben was saying, it looks like that Rena Donaghy's and McDermott's votes are holding up in the two Innishowen electoral areas anyway, so that seems to be par for the course. Now, although as Brendan said, we haven't seen a full tally yet, so we don't really know what the trends. You could be looking at one particular box and a candidate that you're interested in be doing very badly, but it might be completely alien area to them, and that's the votes are all very, very, very local, and that's what it comes down to in the local elections. And
from your own independent perspective,
yeah,
what do you, when you look at those exit polls for the, and I think we've got an announcement from Geraldine O'Connor there, our returning officer. We'll come back to that. But from your own perspective, Thomas, what are you hoping for? What would you like to see? What are the trends that, as an independent, looks like success for you?
Well, what I would like to see is that the candidates that I've been supporting in the local elections, Sinead Stewart and Tracy Cullen and the two Inshowens, that they would be getting elected. And obviously, now looking at it, they haven't polled anywhere close to getting elected on the boxes that I've seen. But again, I have to caveat that I don't know where exactly those boxes are in relation to that. But I would like to see them being elected. It would have been a sign of a very good day for us as an independent team if that was the case. I don't think that's going to happen.
I want to delve into that plethora of independents. I asked Brendan earlier, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Do they, from the party perspective, do they cancel each other out when it comes to the ballot boxes if there's too many independents, or do they take a little bit off everybody? I think your response was Shakespearean, if I'm not mistaken. A plague on all your houses, Brendan, was...
Well, I have a theory in relation to candidates and to the number of candidates. No one stands in any election unless they have a reason. And the independents in each and every one of them have a bona fide reason. Within parties, you stand for if you're nominated or if the party have a desire to put a candidate in a particular area for strategic reasons or other. So there's no one, to my knowledge, that ever stood for no reason for election. There is a reason. And we were talking earlier about the disconnect there is in the European context, and there is a massive disconnect, and you can see that later on today in how the vote in Donegal moved from one to another in terms of political parties and non-party. But perhaps there is a small degree of now coming into the local authority elections, the council elections, that the council and their services are not satisfying or meeting the demands of the general public, and that then creates activism within regions, within areas, and within towns and villages.
Thomas, some people would say that, if the Dáil was full of independents and all with, as Brendan says, their individual reasons for getting elected, nothing would ever get done. You need the party system for effective democracy.
Well,
Some might argue nothing is getting
we've
done.
had a very effective democracy here since 1927 with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. That's an effective democracy that we've had, and we've shown where that's got us to the case where we're still living through the effects of a bailout that has been wrought on us by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and I would cast both parties with the same brush. Look, the reality is that people want change, and they're voting for alternatives, and that's mighty in my view, because that is what will deliver change. Fianna Fáil won't deliver change, Fine Gael won't deliver change, and any of the political parties, established political parties, will not deliver change. If you want change, you will not vote for them, and that's the reality of the situation.
And what is the change that is being promised? Because change for change's sake is maybe a little bit rudderless. What is the change that the rise in the popularity of independence is promising?
Well, I can't speak for all independents because
therein lies the problem.
Independence is a very broad church, but as I would see it in terms of what I would offer and what independents would offer, is actually offer representation that is responsible to the person individually. There is no buffer between the people and the candidate, like you do have in the political parties. And it's also, if the candidates vote for somebody and elect somebody, that is who they vote for, rather than the party having a say in who the candidate can be. And that's vitally important. And I think also as well, I think what people are looking for is if they get adequate representation at a local level, they give you the freedom then to actually represent and put forward the views that you want to see put and at a national stage as well. And I think that's very important, and people are quite happy to go along with that.
But if you take the Donegal municipal area alone itself, and there's 6, candidates that are going to be successfully elected to it. If there were 6 independents, I'm just making the argument, you can prove me wrong here, but if there were 6 independents that were all on that, and you had 2 from Killybegs area, 2 from Donegal town area, and 2 from South Donegal area, are they ever going to agree on where the money should be spent? Are they going to consistently be?
I would say Daniel, that would be great. And if you look at it, when I stood in 1999, I was the only independent in the Donegal electorate area. Now there is 3 independent candidates in the Donegal electorate area now, and after this election, there could be quite more. So I think that's vitally important, and I think that's very welcome. And I think it shows that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have not delivered and have not gone over the ground. And if you have credible independent representation, people will vote for it.
Brendan, the independents are eating your lunch. The party system is dead. If you want real democracy, you've got to have an independent candidate.
Well, he would say that.
He would.
And Brendan will say the exact opposite.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Change is only as good as how you affect change, and that's the reality. And if you have a bunch of independents, let's look at the Dáil, for example, Kern Dáil. Some of the independents wanted to affect change, and they made an arrangement with the government, and they served their constituency through that. Others decided not to. So it's no point in saying I'm an independent and I'll do change and I'm in change. I could say that, but go and do it. Go and do it.
And why can't the independents do that if they're already actively supporting government and helping their candidates that they represent by affecting change that way?
Well, if you look at the independents that you have such diversity. There is no central theme running through the different, be it independence for change, be it independence, which you have to now say, and all the other plethora of independents that are there. Now, I'm not knocking independence. I believe that if you believe in something, you must stand for that and you must put it to the electorate. And at the end of the day, it's the electorate that decides. But there's no point in saying, I'm independent and I'm for change, unless you put it into effect. And to put it into effect, you have to work within the system that's there.
But if the electorate are deciding to vote more and more independents every year, as Thomas has said, in every election, there's more independents across every level of government. If the electorate are deciding to swing suddenly to the Green Party at a European level, what's the message that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael be taken from?
Well, every election is a different message. This is a message in the European election is, number one, we're not terribly interested in the European Parliament elections. No, the electorate, because that is why you have such a high degree of swing. And you'll have a less degree swing. You'll have a less degree of swing in the general election and possibly in the council election. So it depends on what degree of engagement you have in relation to the respective elections.
Is this not maybe a sign that, and maybe the message to the established political parties that have been so dominant in this country for so long, that actually the rule book has been ripped up? It is on the pyre, and that the rules of engagement for the next general election are going to be completely different.
Well, elections are changing and have consistently changed since the 1989 general election, where you have each election since 1989, you have 3 to 4% more of a swing, and that is the trend that's there, and that's what the reality is.
But in your view, what percentage of the population? There was 100, and I think the Donegal News had it during the week there on their paper yesterday. There was a total valid poll of 132,000 people in Donegal, according to the Donegal News. What percentage of those people, a question to both of you, in your view, knew who they were going to vote for definitively before they went into the ballot box?
It depends on which election you're talking about. In a council election, the percentage of people that went into the ballot box to vote would be very high in relation to a council election. But in relation to a European election, going back to the point that I said earlier, there isn't the same engagement, there isn't the same interest as I would have in a council election or you in a European. So we're more flexible in how we vote. And that's because if you look at the result when it will be completely collated here you'll have a situation where the Green vote will probably go from 0.9% to possibly 15%.
Wow.
That is because not of anything the Greens have done on the ground, there is a trend and a swing to them in the context of the European election. That same swing wouldn't happen in a general election because we're focused on different issues and we've more engagement when we're electing a government as opposed to electing a European member of Parliament.
Thomas, from your own perspective, does that trend where people are walking into a ballot box and maybe less certain than they would have been, they're not aligned in the same DNA groups, Fine Gael, that they might have been traditionally, does that benefit the independent vote? Is there more of an opportunity for independents to grow more?
Yeah, there is, and that's vitally important. And and people make up their minds in various different ways, and that obviously people have made of the coverage that the Green Party have got, and the performance of I can't remember her first name now, but McHugh, the Green Party candidate, Saoirse McHugh, the Green Party candidate, her performance on prime time during the week was vitally important, and it showed that people swung based on that. So people will make their decisions in various different ways, and some people will be clear who they're going to vote for in the council and then make the decision in terms of the European election, maybe the day or when they go into the ballot box as well. And the important thing is that people have a choice, and I think that's what's vitally important, that people can make their decision based on that choice.
Well, no shortage of choices in the local elections in Donegal, which have been described, Thomas, you were saying, as the most competitive electoral area in the country. Margaret Carflin, you've been out and about the floor there, you've been talking to some of the candidates, you've been soaking up a little bit of the atmosphere. What's the tension in the air like? Are people embedded here? Have you seen any sleeping bags rolled out yet for the horrid recount? What are we looking at?
We're waiting for that for the Bosco Centre tomorrow, because of course for our area we'll only have a tally figure today. So a lot of the candidates I haven't seen that would be relevant to our area here yet, apart from, of course, our non-party, Porry Kennedy behind me, and I think Noel Jordan. But aside from that, no, they haven't really. Oh, Justin Coughlin's here, I think, but unless they're just waiting maybe to the afternoon, because I'm not sure, Brendan, if they look at that first tally, will some of them have a...
It depends on where you're positioned in that tally, and then there's a big health warning here. If there's 19, there is going to be a lot of movement in the first 4 or 5 counts with eliminations, and that could change the dynamic of the first 4 or 5 candidates. So it depends on how the vote breaks down. I'm anticipating there's going to be no one in the first count, and if there is, I'll be surprised, and that there's going to be a whole bunch of candidates from Donegal Town, Ballyshannon, Bundoran, kind of gathered together in the centre, and as eliminations go on throughout the day, you'll see movement and one overtaking the other, only to be overtaken eventually again, depending on who's been eliminated at the particular time.
Yeah, so we won't really have any sort of any major indication as such. So we're in for the long haul tomorrow.
We are, providing no one has surprised us and has polled extremely well. I'm expecting them all to poll reasonably well, and no front runners, no one running away with it, in other words.
Yeah. So it'll be whatever happens tomorrow. Okay, so I think I'm actually going to maybe pop out of the seat, and I'm going to let Porry Kennedy, one of our candidates, in.
He's going to jump in, and gentlemen, maybe you might want to take this to get more of an insight into how Donegal is voting in these very, very important elections, both, and we haven't even touched on the referendum, but I am delighted to be joined by Porrick Kennedy. Porrick is an independent councillor in Donegal Town. Porrick, we can hear you loud and clear there. Give us a hello.
Good morning, everyone, and all your listeners.
Thank you very much. And Porrick, obviously, firstly, well done. I think anybody who puts themselves in front of the public deserves a well done. It's not an easy thing, and we'll get into the politics and the whole thing and the predictions and how this is going to pan out. But firstly, tell me a little bit, and tell the listeners, what is it like? What does it cost personally to go and put your name on that paper, to go knocking on the doors, to go talking to people? How much effort, how much time, how much personal sacrifice does a candidate have to put
Well, I suppose time. Some would say that I've probably been at this for over 30 years. I've been involved with my father, who's been a great community activist, and then I would have worked with some great community people like the likes of Paddy O'Donnell, who would have been involved in the early rowing club, and Seamus Campbell, who would have been involved with Donegal Town Mart and anything that went on there, and then constantly then got involved then with Seamus Campbell, Shaw Campbell, and then Shamie Campbell, who would be part of the DYMT theatre group and all that there. So I suppose working through the community and being involved in so much and so many things, and then being involved with the band, the Donegal Town Community Band, and the rowing club, and just being involved in anything that goes on about Donegal.
And that's ongoing.
That's ongoing, yeah.
But when it comes to a canvas, when it comes to
Canvas,
going
yeah,
out and
yeah.
knocking the doors, I mean, is that 10 hours a week? Is it
Oh.
50 hours a week? Is it, what does that look like? What
It's,
does Monday morning look like when
God,
you're
it's like
canvassing?
work. I work in the Rock Nursing Home in Ballyshannon. I'm a chef up there, and then it's maybe disappearing for a wee while to take a phone call or text or whatever, and then back and get the dinner out and get tidied up, and then get organised for the tea or whatever, and then down the road then about 5 o'clock, and then you're quick shower and out the door. And like and while lucky with the support and the team had round me,
So
you know,
it's
there
probably
were
6 or 7 o'clock before you're getting out on the canvas. Isn't
six. We're trying to be out around 6 o'clock because, you know, and I just like to thank everyone and apologise if we interrupted them in their dinner or getting their kids to
it?
bed.
I'm sure that's just
I
what they
mean,
want to see as a local election
they were
candidate
like,
coming
oh,
knocking their door at
Jesus,
dinner
not
time.
another one of them coming around. What are these boys selling? But anyway, look, I have to thank the community. They've been so receptive to us and so obliging and just taking their time to listen and to talk to us.
And what
and
time would you
engaging.
canvas? What time would you
Well,
canvas until?
we tried to finish up 8:30, 9 o'clock.
And it's just because calling
Look,
somebody's house after
It's
that.
just not right. I mean, we wouldn't ring the doorbell after 8 o'clock. We'd knock, and I apologise if some of the guys did ring the doorbell. I was like, "Gee, don't be ringing," you know.
And tell
but
me this then: how many people would you have out canvassing with you? You need a small army.
It's small army, yeah. But we had a small but great team out. We would have about maybe we'd have 6 or 8 out every night, going either with us in different areas or whatever. So it'd be two. Sometimes it was one of maybe myself. If someone was available, I'd do an hour, pick off a corner. Like Donegal Southwest is so
huge,
massive.
huge
Like
area.
from Burndoran to Glencollinkill to Biddies of Arness to Binban. You know that.
I have a 20-year-old son last night, and he's quite interested in his politics, and
Yes.
can't get over that's one area.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
it stretches
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far, and it,
Oh,
thinks it should be 3 or 4, and maybe it might. I think as we're
Aye.
going to see, it's going to turn into 3 areas.
Yeah.
Breaks down into a
Yeah.
Bundoran Ballyshannon battle, a Donegal Town battle, and,
Yes.
and a west of Donegal battle.
Yeah.
We'll come to that
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual logistics of doing the canvas,
Yes.
how many houses do you get to? Can you get to? Did you knock the doors in Killybegs?
Yeah.
Did you knock the doors in Bundoran?
Yes.
Or do you focus more on your core area?
Well, I suppose you play to your strength, and I started the canvas in St Joseph's Avenue in Donegal Town, where I started, where
That's the home patch.
home patch. So you start off positive anyway, and hope, and then I finished up in Arbeg, which is just about 2 minutes out, about 3 minutes outside the town.
And where did you go to in between?
Well, no, I was on roads, and I thought I knew, and I have been on a lot of roads. But then there was areas that you were like, oh, well, we'll just do them couple of houses there, and then the next thing you go around, and there's another heap of houses, you know. And Donegal is so spread out, but just you know, it's great to see.
What was the reception like on the doorstep?
Very positive. You know, I mean,
Is that just people being nice?
well,
or
is
they,
it? Yeah, but look, you know, people are not silly. They know who's trying to bluff them or who's going on. They know if you're being involved and stuff. They see things happen.
what was the issue on the doorstep? Because some people have said this was the election where there wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
You know, health and housing are
Yeah,
two mammoth
massive,
tsunamis
massive.
that are there,
Yeah.
but they've kind of always been there. You know,
yeah,
in one guise or another. And and a lot of people saying, well, there wasn't really a burning issue. There wasn't really something that ignited the public imagination, certainly on the local level.
Well, I suppose there is the broadband, and there is students that would like to be at home and get their homework and get their work done, and have the efficiency of broadband. And then there's people that would like to work from home and stuff like that.
People like to stream Netflix and
Yeah.
movies.
And then you have the argument then that we were at one house then, and one guy says, well, look, he says, I live in the country because I like the country. I says, he says, if I wanted Wi-Fi, I'd have lived in the town.
Yeah.
There's that view. And I mean, you look at the cost of broadband and you think, ESB have a line going to every house in the country. Why can't they?
I'm far from qualified to be able to
same as
answer
that
this,
too.
but I do think the answer is going to be technology is going to
I'd be
supersede that,
and the same as that.
It'll be 5G, and the whole broadband national rollout plan will be completely superfluous.
Yeah.
To come back to the politics,
Yes.
though, I think if we were to cut you and give you a DNA test, there'd be a bit of Fianna Fáil in there.
There would be, I suppose.
Tell me about the Fianna Fáil heritage and the family first.
I mean, my father is long known that he's been a long-serving county councillor at Donegal County Council, chairman. He actually was 3 chairs at the one time. He was the Border Regions chairman, the Donegal County Council chairman, and the what other? He was
The VC, was it? Or?
yeah. So he loved just doing and getting involved and just seeing things happen. I think every day he went through to Lifford, he thought, what can I do for Donegal? He just loved he travelled and he met so many people. He was on the road. If he wasn't, he used to deliver or work with Sloan's, and then he went to Greenfield Stamps, and so he was a salesman. So he met so many people, and he had a great way with people, and he just loved the crack.
And when you saw when you saw your dad, when you were growing up, in that household, and you saw your dad, and the personal property that people make of a county councillor, did you not think to yourself, I am never doing that?
We on Christmas Day about a stove that are arranged that was supposed to be in a house or a council house or something. We did, and then he was involved in the fire brigade as well.
Would that not turn you off, though? Would you not like to enjoy your Christmas dinner in peace?
Well, I suppose I something or other or working away. I don't like being out front. I mean, I stand down the back at mass.
You're out front today.
Out front today, yeah.
So
the reason I suppose I do that is I love to see things happen, and then I love to stand back and see the culmination of all the meetings, all the coming together, and this thing happening. The likes of the band, I'll never forget the first. I mean, the band.
You see the band actually playing.
The band.
And you think all the thoughts that have come together.
I mean,
similar experiences in my life, but I want to come to the political side of things.
I'm not avoiding it.
The Fianna Fáil gene pool.
Yes.
But you stepped aside from it.
Yes.
Why?
I just think that I was being involved in so many committees and stuff, and working with some great people that, their political view is their political view, and I wouldn't try and force any view on anyone. But I just thought that working with people, I didn't want them to think, oh, he's Fianna Fáil, we can't do this or we can't do that. So it was just, I as an independent then I was being led up.
Well, let me put it to you. Maybe the nose was out of joint because Fianna Fáil weren't indicating they were going to nominate you as the candidate.
Maybe I didn't indicate to them that I was interested to go to them.
Well, there's 2 maybes in our 2 sentences, which only you know the truth.
Well, no, I was happy that I was going to be independent. I mean, if I wanted to be for Fianna Fáil, I could have. I mean, I had connections with Fianna Fáil if I wanted to be with Fianna Fáil.
So you could have been on the Fianna Fáil ticket.
Yeah. I would have had enough. I could have gathered support if I wanted to be with Fianna Fáil, but I didn't want to be with Fianna Fáil. I wanted to be my own person, because as my own person, then as mayor, you're meeting loads of people, and I wanted to work with people.
So you would see the party as being a disadvantage rather than an advantage.
Well, you see, is that a way? You know, I have no doubt that I got Fianna Fáil votes. I have no doubt that I've got Sinn Féin, Fine Gael votes, because I am who I am as Pádraig Kennedy. Now, if I was Pádraig Kennedy, a Fianna Fáil or a Fine Gael or Sinn Féin candidate, would I get as much votes? I don't think I would. So it was. I chose to be independent because it was for me.
So
I
let's fast forward to tomorrow evening,
Yes.
God willing, and
Yeah.
all results are in.
Yeah.
It might be Monday at this stage,
Yeah.
but let's say you're successful, and
Yeah.
you know, God willing, you will be
Yeah.
for your own
Yeah.
sakes. If you're successful and you join Donegal County Council,
Yeah.
and Fianna Fáil come knocking on the door and say, "Come on now,
Aye.
come back to the fold.
Aye.
We can get things done together.
Yeah.
We're stronger together. We
Yeah.
can make things happen." What
Yeah.
would you say?
I'll say, no, you're all right. I'll say, I'll work. If you have some good proposals for the development of Donegal, I'll support you.
You're happy to work with them.
But if Fine Gael come to me with good support, or Sinn Féin, I'll work with them. Being independent and being mayor, you know, I got a massive vote from everyone, and and my thing on the door was that I'll vote for it if it's right, and if it's not right, I won't vote for it.
Tell me about Donegal Town. We've got a
Yeah.
microcosm that is very interesting. You've Micheál Naughton, yourself, and Tom Connahan.
Yes.
There are 3 seats sitting in Donegal.
Yeah.
The numbers would suggest it ain't going to stay that way.
No.
And what's your own view? Take your personal interests aside. Put on your analyst hat.
Yes.
Tell me, what do you think is going to happen in the microcosm that's Donegal?
Well, if I can be strong in Donegal, I have a massive cross-party support to take me well up there, and possibly over the line.
But will Tom Connahan eat some of your vote? Are you both fishing out of the same pool?
Listen, if Donegal Town voted right, there's enough. There's over 4,000 votes, so Donegal Town could have 2 councillors.
Yeah, but will it?
There's a big vote out there now. A lot came out to vote.
What was the turnout like in around Donegal Town?
I think it was nearly 57 and 50, 53 or 54. I think that was good. Like, because
Yeah.
it wasn't, I don't think it was as high the last time out.
And
then there was a massive vote then in the likes of Drummerone, and
you find that'll favour you. You think that high turnout will favour your cross-party support?
well, I hope, yeah. Look, we're living in hope.
That's the
and that's,
politics.
I have to say it was a very positive canvass, and I had such a great team. And Seamus Campbell was my director of elections, and Seamus is a well-respected person in the community, like Ethel and Linda and India, and the girls and all, and McGowan and Pam. I'm going to miss somebody now, and it's a bad thing.
You're better to say everybody helped and supported.
And I'm sure I'll get another interview somewhere along the line, and I'll remember everyone. But look, how do you see it? You think?
Make a prediction for Donegal Town.
Oh God!
An unselfish prediction.
Well, yeah, I'm going to get the seat in Donegal Town.
You're going to get the seat in Donegal Town.
Why would you go out and think that you weren't going to win it?
And again, I think you're not politically naive.
I know.
It's in the DNA.
Yeah.
And I think if you're sitting here confidently saying you're definitely going to take a seat, and there's going to be a Kennedy back in Donegal County Council, and that you're not going to go back to Fianna Fáil if Fianna Fáil.
No, you can record it now.
No, we have it all recorded.
I'd
say Therese is tweeting away that, if I'm not mistaken, Kennedy says no to
I don't
Donegal.
say. I say I'll work with all of them, but it's for the betterment of Donegal.
But you'll stay independent.
I'll stay independent.
Pádraig Kennedy, we have to take a break. It's an interesting insight into what the sweat, blood and tears that it takes to get elected in this most competitive of electoral areas. Pádraig, thanks for joining us on the show this morning. We'll take that break. Good morning and welcome back to the Aura Centre here in Letterkenny. My name is Daniel Brown. I'm here with Margaret Carr Flynn, Therese Madden, Cian Hamilton. There's Elizabeth McIntyre tallying away for Philip McGlynn. Once I'm waiting for those votes to be opened in the Donegal South electoral area. The boxes have all been brought back from around County Donegal. 132,000 people able to vote in the county of Donegal. All those boxes back here in the Aura Leisure Centre, the European votes, the local election votes, the referendum vote, all being divvied out here, all being sorted out. Mag's been a busy morning already here in the Aura Leisure Centre in Letterkenny.
Yeah, it is, and I think from our own point of view, I suppose we're waiting in anticipation for the Donegal Southwest boxes to be open, so we can get a picture of how our candidates are doing, and that's, I suppose, the main interest from our listeners. They're wondering what's happening. I'm told it could be roughly 2:00 before they're open, so we'll have to hang on in there until then. And then, of course, we're back to the John Bosco Centre in Donegal. A few people wondering about the count. The count actually doesn't start until tomorrow morning, so at 9:00, and we'll be live from the John Bosco Centre tomorrow morning.
And really, all we're going to get today is a tally. And I suppose it's for some of the non-political anoraks that maybe aren't in this room that are listening to us this morning, trying to get their head around what this is. You know, the system of a tally, and I'll try and break this down for people, maybe keep me on the straight and narrow here, Mag. So the boxes come back here. Every
Correct.
box has got 3 votes in it. Or 3 ballots in it. It's got the European ballots, it's got the local ballots, and it's also got the referendum ballot. What the counters here are doing this morning, and they're behind a barrier. The votes have been here under lock and key all night.
Yeah.
They're opening those boxes out. What are they doing when they open those boxes
Okay,
out?
so they're actually separating the three ballot papers, and as they are separating them, the tally people are here, and each candidate that's involved with each electoral area, they have tally people who are tallying for Europe and who are also tallying for local election as well. So that's actually what's happening here at the minute. Now
And when they say they're tallying, just like maybe I'll paint a picture for people. These people they've got their backs to us. They've got their candidates stickers on their back. So as you can tell, I'm looking at a couple of Matt Carthy counters here. I've seen other Fianna Fáil, etc. counters, and I believe Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil actually teaming up to tally in Donegal here. So what they're doing is they're watching from a distance of about 2 foot, 3 foot, as the counters behind the barriers look at the ballots and segregate the ballots, and they've got a split second.
Yeah, to look to see where that number 1 is. Has their candidate got that number 1 vote?
How much information can they really absorb in that split second? I mean, how reliable is a tally going to be?
They are really good at what they do. They're really good. The tally people are really, really good at what they do. They have been set a task and they're just watching it. Those are being opened out, they're watching them constantly, and they're putting a tick where if they get a number one, they're putting their tick at that number one.
And it is an art form to watch these guys in operation, guys and girls, I should say, of all shapes, sizes, and it really is the machine of local democracy in action. It's I think for the people in this room, they eat and breathe this. It's a great atmosphere.
There is a great atmosphere, yeah. And while they're doing it, you don't talk to them. They're just totally focused on exactly what they're doing, and they will not miss a vote, because they are the people that are watching for the candidate as well, to make sure that everything is right for them, and that if they have a number one or a number two, that they're aware of where that is.
We spoke to Cora Kennedy just now, one of the candidates in the South Donegal electoral area. Not all the candidates are here yet, are they?
No, they're not all here yet. I have James McGuire here, Justin Coughlin was here, Noel Jordan is here, but no, the majority.
What are they waiting
the
for?
Majority of them aren't here. Well, I suppose hopefully they're listening to us and they possibly know that their boxes
There's no rush on them yet.
There's no rush on them yet. In fact, we have a particular candidate, because of course Donegal is taking on for Manna tomorrow, who possibly will go to the match and then come back to the Bosco Centre for the count. So yeah,
it's good to have your priorities in order. But I mean, some of these tally men will be, and I use the expression tally men, I don't mean to be gender specific, but that is the expression, they're the tally men.
I suppose they're tally people now.
Are they tally people?
Just before we get into bother.
So the tally people, tallying away here, they're in touch with the candidates, and they're going to tell the candidate, yeah, you're doing well, no, you're not doing well, and maybe some of the candidates mightn't even show face, would they?
Well, from what Brendan Byrne was saying to us, like, okay, we will have a tally picture today, but that doesn't necessarily mean the outcome. I'm sure if maybe possibly if you're way down at the bottom of the list when the tally's done, then it's possibly a no-show. But I think that if you're up there, when the transfers and all start, that's when they'll get a better picture. And I know our reporter Trace Madden has joined us, so maybe Trace has got some news for us on what's happening.
Like early indications so far, Brendan probably will give you a bit of a further detailed analysis on this, but the Buncrana tally has been finished at the moment and he will give you an update on that. But they're also tallying at the moment, and they're expected to have that relatively shortly, so it shouldn't be too long more before the tally figures are in on that. And they're opening the Letterkenny boxes at the moment,
which will be interesting, because there was a boundary change that affected two of the local electoral areas here in Donegal this year. So Letterkenny traditionally would have had the Milford electoral area in it, and Milford has been hived off as an electoral area of its own with 3 seats. So Letterkenny has been reduced from a 10-seater to a 7-seater. So I think we're going to start to get into the edge of this County Donegal election now when Letterkenny starts to open. Trace, the big story of the morning, the Fianna Fáil failure on the European level, the big swing towards the Greens, and we're seeing that here in Donegal.
Yeah, we are as well. I think it was quite unexpected as well, and everybody you talked to here this morning, you get a sense of it's quite a surprise that the Greens are doing so well. Now, as with all of these things, they're early exit polls, there is a margin of error, but it's looking very like that default seat, as Patty Pope Gallagher mentioned earlier on, could be at stake. And they are genuinely worried about it. And as we say, the Green Party candidate there, Saoirse McHugh, doing very well. So.
And I mean, kind of nearly, I wouldn't say defeatist, but realistic. Patty Pope Gallagher very early, 9:15 this morning, saying, look, if those exit polls are reading as we see them for Brendan Smith and Fionnuala Rabbit, Mary Rabbit.
Anne Rabbit.
Anne Rabbit,
Anne Rabbit.
And I know her, she's a lovely lady.
Yeah.
If then Fianna Fáil are in bother, he conceded. That's a former MEP saying Fianna Fáil have got this wrong. That's big. That's a big blow for Fianna Fáil.
It's worrying for them this morning. All right. I know there are other. Charlie McConalogue is here, and he said he will speak to us in a little while. I was speaking to him there earlier on. I mentioned to him just briefly about Europe, but he said he'll come back and give us a bit more of an in-depth look at how he feels about how they're doing at the moment here in local election terms. But hopefully we'll get more a bit of an analysis on how they're actually feeling about it here.
And Inishowen obviously was the other area of the county that got split by an additional local electoral area. What was Charlie McConalogue's demeanour? Was he relaxed and confident about how the boxes were opening in Inishowen, or was he looking a little bit under pressure to you?
Well, you know, it's hard to say at the moment, but he said that he didn't really want to either way kind of say.
I'll
how
take that
things
as
are
a very
going.
diplomatic. He's under pressure that Fianna Fáil.
He said he would come back to us. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well, I think if he wanted to sing and dance about the success of Fianna Fáil in the Inishowen area, he'd be on over with us already at this stage. Trace, in terms of the process for listeners, you've said Letterkenny is third now, and that's where we're at, and Donegal is the fifth to be opened.
It's fifth. It is fifth. And funny enough, and going back to the year election, I actually met one of the guys who's involved with the Irish Hill and Sheep Farmers organisation, and he was actually talking about Saoirse McHugh, and he said to me that, you know, in general, because of climate change and that, and you know, with farmers, with so many rules and regulations, that, you know, a Green Party candidate, you know, was that the right choice to go with? But for the farming community, they were actually saying that she's really good, and that she has been in the region at a number of meetings with farming organisations, and they were extremely impressed by her and by what she had to say, and not at all surprised that she's doing so well.
And we interviewed her on Ocean FM in the news during last week, and she said she had been up in Donegal, and she said that people in Donegal, more so than any other area that she's been, obviously a lot of places are, but are extremely concerned about climate change, and she wanted to look at the possibility of using the natural resources that people have here in Donegal, like wind energy, and people were very open to that, she said, when she spoke to them on the doorsteps, and it was something that they were really, really interested in and really concerned about, because it is their livelihoods.
And it does seem to be that, you know, generally the Green Party and the farming community are at loggerheads, and I think it does seem to have been a mind shift here on this occasion, that the Green Party seem to have crossed that Rubicon, and potentially I'm surmising here, but you know, a lot of the Green Party previously were maybe from, you know, South County Dublin, and maybe didn't have as best an understanding, weren't going to those ICMSA meetings, and I mean, I'm looking at this week's Donegal News newspaper, and there's a page 15. There's a story: erosion urgency grows at 4 coastal locations, and it's a story talking about real erosion of serious magnitude along the West Donegal coastline. The issue of climate change has moved from being something left of centre to being a very mainstream issue now. And again, amongst my own family, when we were discussing, you know, where votes would go and who, to me, the only issue is the environment. There is no other, and if we don't have the environment, we don't have anything. And Eamon Ryan of the Green Party on this morning on News Talk was talking a little bit about this phenomenon, this green wave that seems to have swept the country. And he was being quite cautious in terms of how it might pan out. But potentially Ireland could, as it stands this morning, have 3 Green MEPs going to Europe, which would be a resurrection of monumental proportions. And he was quick to point out that actually, if you're looking at how exit polls are showing in Holland and other places, that the Green Party could be taking quite a large swing across Europe. Saoirse McHugh, I thought, very interesting insight into modern media. She was on prime time during the week. She put Peter Casey back in his box very succinctly and without breaking sweat.
Yeah.
I think that more than anything has catapulted her into the public imagination. The clip of her citing exactly what Peter Casey should and shouldn't do has got over 120,000 views since that prime time debate. And Eamon Ryan this morning on News Talk said he's not a gambling man, and he put money
That's
on
right.
Saoirse McHugh when she was a 50-1 shot. Sounds like a smart bet. Trace, did you have any money down?
No, I wish I did now, but
Yeah.
it would have come in good. But I think when I spoke to Saoirse last week, I think one of the things that stood out was that she is from Achill herself in Mayo, and she's from quite a rural community. And I think she gets that. So when she comes to Donegal and she speaks to people in places that are remote, that are far away from large urban areas, I think she understands some of the people that she's been speaking to on the doorsteps and some of the farmers.
And that's what they were saying. That's
It resonated with them.
yeah, and that's what they said to me from the Hill Farmers Association, that even though normally like a Green Party candidate, because of all the rules and regulations and what they possibly would want, that they would shy away, but she's understanding of them, and I think that's, she probably got a bigger vote than we would have thought from a farming background.
And I think it's interesting as well that people nodded at the climate strikes by the kids, and sort of said, "Oh, yeah, isn't that nice?" And "Oh, it's all very important. It's all very." But there was a certain kind of platitude sort of attitude in relation to it, and I think that has actually had a much bigger impact than people have said. Thomas Pringle, when we spoke to him earlier off air, said it was the first time ever that he has seen the issue of the environment come up on the doorsteps. He'd never seen that before. And it wasn't just young people, it was older people. We are going to take a quick break in a moment's time. We'll let Cian give us the nod, and whenever we're good to go with that. And we're going to bring our listeners back up to speed with everything that's been happening here in the Aura Centre in Letterkenny as we plod our way through proportional representation, single transferable votes, and the vagaries of local democracy. My name is Daniel Brown. I'm here with Margaret Carr Flynn, Therese Madden, Cian Hamilton. We're the Ocean team. We've had Brendan Byrne and Thomas Pringle, our expert panelists. They've been out and about on the floor, and we are going to be going to a break. But Thomas, you're back to us. Tell us a little bit, how are things looking out there?
All the tallies are in for the Buncrana area anyway, and it's looking that Paul Canning's in a fall will top the poll there with a small surplus, I think 40 or 50 votes, around about 1,520 votes. Then Jack Murray and Rena Donahue will be second and third, we're around about the same, about 1,250 or so.
No big surprises?
No big surprises. No real change there. Nicholas Crossan then will be in fourth place, and the one change will be that it's quite possible that Champagne will take a second seat there, which will be a gain for them. The Terry Crossan is on 760 votes at the minute. Now he will need a number of transfers, but it's looking like he'll take the last seat.
I saw your former Doyle colleague Padraig McLaughlin earlier, and he was under a certain amount of pressure, he was saying himself, by open admission, trying to organise tallies. He said something to me, and maybe I picked him up wrong, but that are Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin sharing tally information?
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. Like, everybody's sharing tally information because, I mean, as you can see here in the Crown Centre, you need to do that really to get an accurate picture of it, and they'll basically, they may be tallying the same boxes, but they'll compare figures just to make sure, see how right they are, and you kind of work with everybody here to get an accurate picture, because it's in everybody's interest to have a kind of an accurate picture, and there's no big secret, like, so the results
it's going to be public eventually. Yeah.
The results will be out tomorrow anyway. Like,
and then in terms of those Buncrana boxes that have been opened, that we have that full tally now, that we know are indicative results at this stage, and we can and must continue to stress throughout the day, these are just tallies, but how did the Europeans look in those Buncrana boxes? Is the green wave that you saw earlier still there?
Yeah, I think it is now. I have to put a caveat on this a bit, that it's only looking at individual boxes, but I mean, definitely seems to be good with appearing in those boxes, which you'd be surprised. And you would say that green wave is there, all right. And now, obviously, Casey was polling reasonably well, but you would expect that in Inishone with him living in Inishone anyway.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
He was going to be my next question, and he is a man I want to discuss some further, but we do have to, because he's a fellow independent of yours, Thomas.
Well, that's the one problem with independence is it's a very broad church.
It's a very broad church indeed.
A lot of people can have the name of independence.
We'll come back and see who worships there after this break. Cian, we'll take that break.
And you're very welcome back to the Aura Centre here in Letterkenny. We are here giving you full live coverage of our election count. Well, today it is the separation of the votes and tally. And just to remind you, for the latest and exclusive tally figures for Sligo and Leitrim counts, go to oceanfm.ie, click on follow the count, and click on view tally for figures from Sligo and Leitrim. And to update these figures as they happen, just refresh your computer by pressing the F5 button, or on the mobile phone, just scroll down. And remember, if you want to listen to what's happening at the Leitrim count, go to oceanfm.ie and click on follow the count and go to the Leitrim Listen Live link. And if you want to watch what is going on at any of our counts here in Donegal or in Sligo and Leitrim, click on oceanfm.ie, go to follow the count, and go to watch live for either of the 3 count centres. And of course, you can listen to exclusive coverage of the count here in Donegal on our 105 FM and 94.7 FM frequencies. And this coverage is brought to you with thanks to Sandhouse Hotel and Marine Spa in Rosmala. Now, I'm joined again by Brendan Byrne and indeed by Deputy Thomas Pringle. Brendan, you have been taking a look at some of the latest tally figures. So firstly, where are they from?
They're from Buncrana, which is south Inishowen. It's a new electoral area set up when Inishowen was split in 2. It's a 5-seater, and the outgoing councillors were 2 for Fianna Fáil, 1 for Fine Gael, Councillor Mickey Doherty, 1 for Independent, Councillor Nicholas Crossan, and so that's it, isn't it? Yeah. So the full tally is now in, and the interesting reading, the first headline you would have to give is that the Fine Gael vote in real terms has fallen by about 60%.
60%,
Yes.
60, and obviously
That's colossal collapse when
yeah.
you look at it in the context of Buncrana town and surrounding areas. So the run-in percentages are Fianna Fáil on 36.7%, followed by Fine Gael on 26.4%, and Fine Gael are on 10.3%. So Sinn Féin are in second position with 26.4% of the first preferences votes. Remarkably, there'll be 3 candidates elected on the first count. You'll have
on the first count.
On the first count, as per the tally projections, you'll have Councillor Kenny of Fianna Fáil, followed by Councillor Rena Donaghy of Fianna Fáil and Councillor Jack Murray of Sinn Féin.
Okay, and is there, just to confirm, is there a sitting Fine Gael councillor in that area at the minute?
There is Councillor Mickey Doherty of Fine Gael, who was put on to the council in the place of Councillor John Ryan, who retired during this term. Councillor Mickey Doherty was previously a councillor for 5 years, but lost his seat in 2014. He's polling, the tally figures here, his first preference is 487 votes, which is a massive collapse.
Yeah.
And his running mate is a Michelle McKenna, who's based in Buncrana town, and 298 votes. And if you look at the other candidates that are there, Paul Kenny of Fianna Fáil has 1,520, Nicholas Crossan, Independent, 1,068, Terry Crossan of Sinn Féin, 719, and you have Mickey Doherty, the sitting Fine Gael councillor, on 487, Councillor Rena Donaghy of Fianna Fáil, 1,270, F. Lavelle, Independent, 316, Michelle McKenna, Fine Gael, 298, M. McKinney, Independent, 89, and J. Murphy of Aintu, 255, and Jack Murray, Sinn Féin, 1,281, and S. Stewart, Independent, 299 votes. So that's the makeup. So the headline is that Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin doing well. It's a gain of a seat for Sinn Féin there from Fine Gael, and the Independent under Nicholas Crossan holding the seat quite comfortably. Nicholas Crossan is a Buncrana-based candidate.
So is Sinn Féin who are winning out on this
Because of
the drop? Because of the drop.
Yeah, there's a Sinn Féin gain in South Inishowen. That's really the news, I suppose, of that count.
Would you have any concerns there that this could be a trendsetter for our full region?
Very difficult to know.
I'll tell you when you see the rest of the
Always good after the fact, Thomas.
Yes.
I think Thomas might contradict or agree with me. I don't know. I think the Fine Gael vote is going to be under pressure.
You'd
In
imagine-
general.
Right across the
You'd
board.
imagine it would be anyway.
For
Like,
a midterm election, wouldn't that be normal?
It is. But then there is normal and then there's abnormal. And
Mm.
if this is a trend, then this is abnormal. You would say that no Fine Gael seat would be safe, bar one or two, if this is a trend. But
Okay.
this is only one incident.
Yeah.
Now, I did have a glance at the North Inishowen, Carndonagh electoral area, and their sitting councillor and their longest serving councillor, Bernard McGuinness,
Hmm.
is under pressure. He's struggling to get the 700 votes.
Okay.
And
And
Bernard
are you
McGuinness
surprised
is
by that?
I'm shocked is the word, really. Previous poll topper in that area, councillor since 1979.
Since 1979.
The first day I went to school was in 1979, and he's been a councillor since
Right.
that. And so that would be a concerning trend.
Mm.
That a figure of such as Bernard McGuinness. Now, Bernard McGuinness could well hang on transfers, but it's a bad issue for them.
And is that, do you think as well, because people who normally would vote party have maybe turned a little bit from the being a party faithful?
You see, you need to look at the dynamic of all the candidates up there. I wouldn't have as good a knowledge of the candidates up there, but I know that there was a Maria Duffy added by Fianna Fáil up there, a young candidate in the general vicinity of Councillor Bernard McGuinness. So he had a sitting councillor of 40 years against a new face. So that may have upset the dynamic of his local vote.
Mm.
It's very little that can change the dynamic of a council election. A candidate here or there, or an issue here or there. Is it the Micah issue, for example, that's
That's
battering
right.
the Fine Gael vote right throughout Inishowen? A strong possibility that it is. But something has gone fundamentally, colossally wrong for Fine Gael in Inishowen. And I'm all sympathy.
And what would you, what would you think,
Sure
Thomas?
you are.
Yeah, yeah. What would your impression of what's happening be?
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting government as Fine Gael are would be under pressure. You would imagine that's what particularly in a local election like this, and I think the Micah issue probably does have a big bearing because Buncrana or the Inishowen electorate area was the most affected by the Micah issue as well. Like, you know, and the response of the government to that has been slow, to say the least.
And for those who don't know what the Micah issue is, that's people's home are basically collapsing.
Basically collapsing. Basically, defective blocks were made that contain a high level of mica, and they're deteriorating over time. And I've seen quite a few houses myself when I was up there canvassing over through the elections, and it's appalling the damage that has been done to them. And I think Fine Gael had an opportunity, particularly when you look at how they've responded to the problems that were in Dublin in terms of the
fire safety
Yeah,
in those apartments. I forget the name of them.
But there was also the issue around the fill. I can't remember that. It's not Micah, but in Dublin,
Oh yeah,
I can't remember.
Silica.
Yeah. But so how they responded to that, in terms of homeowners got a response and got it dealt with and being dealt with fully. And Donegal here, that response has been minimal. You know.
And do you think the flooding of the homes as well,
Yeah.
would that have had a bearing on it as well?
I think so. Like when you see this, there's people still out of their homes. What is nearly 2 years ago
Must
now
be.
from that, and, you know, and that's all showing that there's a lack of government response in relation to that issue. So that's bound to feed into the local election results and showing, I imagine.
Well, if Fine Gael are having a bad day in the local elections in Inishowen, certainly not been a good day for Fianna Fáil on the European front. And we had Pat the Cope Gallagher on earlier. He's obviously a former MEP himself. He's fought that election. And Therese Madden has captured a little interview that we had from Pat the Cope this morning in relation to his view on how Fianna Fáil have had a bad day out. And Therese, I think, is just going to cue that up. But Brendan, we discussed this. A bad day for Fianna Fáil on the European side of things. If you're all sympathy for Fine Gael in Inishowen, maybe because you're feeling their pain on a much bigger platform.
Look, I felt pain in the past. I saw the seats from under me taken. I have a very kind of straightforward view of politics. You go in it, you fight your fight, and you make every effort to get the vote. It's not your seat, it's the people's seat, and they will dictate where it goes.
Well, let's hear what Pat the Cope Gallagher had to say earlier in relation to that. I'm delighted to be joined by Pat the Cope Gallagher, a seasoned politician. Pat, thank you very much for joining us here this morning, and understand that some of those exit polls are very just early days yet, but I can put those, you've got them there, okay. I mean, Pat, I got to put it to you first. Not a great outing for Fianna Fáil if those if those exit polls were to hold water.
I would immediately say that the Midlands was somewhat disappointing, to say the least. When I saw them last night and on the late, I couldn't believe it, actually. When I consider now that the total that we have is 9%, which sends out a very clear message.
You were an MEP. You've been this soldier. You've put yourself in front of the electorate, and you've topped the polls. Is this about who they chose?
Well, I think name recognition is very important. And this time 25 years ago, I was in Bundoran when I was first elected. And at that time, we got 2 seats, both myself, Mark Hillelay, and Joe McCartan. But quite honestly, from the polls prior to this, we were fairly confident that we would take 1 seat. Because last time around, when I lost a little over 200 votes, which coming from Donegal going down to Lee Shoffley, it wasn't a lot, but I still didn't win the seat.
It's a minuscule margin in a vote of that size.
But 1 vote can make all the difference. So it's not looking good for us there at all.
Based on what you're seeing there, do you think there's a seat in it for Fianna Fáil, or you don't think so?
Unless the margin of error goes the right way on both sides, which would be unusual. That was putting Brenton up to 10 and putting Ann Rabbit up to 7 in the transfers. But these exit polls, they're fairly accurate before. And I would hope from Fianna Fáil perspective that they're not accurate this time. But we have to be realistic. And the only certainty that there is there at the moment, of course, is Mairead McGuinness. Doesn't surprise me, 25%, a quota of 20%. And then, of course, it'll depend on the transfers to Maria Welch.
There was a little bit of animosity between the two, as there sometimes can be when candidates are on the same ticket and vote sharing and who's meant to be canvassing where. And I think there was definitely a little bit of sniping at each other, if you'll pardon the military reference from that Maria came out with, saying, I'm not going to be bullied by Mairead McGuinness.
But that could be an advantage, while there's a bit of animosity between it. That happened both myself and Mark Hillelay when you were only a young fella 25 years ago. I was going in Sligo, which was my territory, and Mark was going out the back door and I was coming in the front door. But I mean, all that is part of the electioneering campaign within parties. But I would expect that the very least that Maria Welch will get from Mairead McGuinness will be 2%. There's 5% there, so that's a 40% transfer. And of course, she has advantages there. And it's just difficult to call it after that. Matt Carthy should be okay. Saoirse McHugh with her 1 or 2 liners on the prime time. She became a household name. Overnight. And then, of course, the young people now, I've seen them, they're all into the environment, and I would say a lot of young people, and not just young people, would have voted for her.
So, has politics changed, Pat, in your experience, and how politics was done, 20 years ago, and how seats were won, and how name recognition was got, and how important the party makes in the public consciousness? Have one-liner on prime time that goes viral on the internet, and suddenly she sweeps the boards coming from nowhere. That's a different environment.
Well, it is, but and then she didn't have the same name recognition as others would have, but she just resonated with the electorate, and I must say I was quite impressed. I saw clips from that, and I think it was you yourself who was telling me that there's hundreds of thousands of hits.
122,000 views on that one sentence, where she turned around to Peter Casey and said, you know what, Peter? We're sick of the millionaire middle-aged men telling us how to run our country. Take your trope, pastiche, whatever way she phrased it, and stick it in your pipe. And she moved on. She dusted them.
On a jovial note, am I lucky that's out of the middle-aged one? I'm hoping it won't affect people like me.
Do you think it was a young vote then, Pat? Do you think that that's where this has gone for Shears?
It looks like
think
it.
so?
You know, just to give you, someone was telling me this morning that the exit polls, and there are exit polls been done for years, but we weren't taking that seriously. And exit polls in 1981, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael had 86%, and that's been dropping progressively by 5% at each election, and that's what brings us to what we are now. So traditional politics, children don't follow families anymore.
And is the party machine less effective in a modern media environment where that one line can maybe be as effective as a whole party machine? Is that making a big change to the party machine?
Well, the party machine, I believe, with all of the changes in technology and social media, I remember going back when we all had to write the envelopes and everybody was involved and they were in back rooms, smoke-filled rooms, doing all that, and it involved more people. Whereas now it's all a press of a button and all the labels go out. So I think that's a regressive step. But also. I recall in 1994 when I first stood, and it's advantageous, we thought, to have locals and Europeans on the same day because it brings out the locals and then they vote European. But locals are a priority, and it's the lowest common denominator. And in 1994, there was no locals that year. No locals. Really? The only advantage there was, and it was advantageous to those in the West, there was a by-election in West Mayo. That's the time that Patrick Flynn went to Europe and Michael Ring was elected. So all over the other counties, apart from West Mayo, they were going out only to vote in one election. And we thought that was a downside. But by the same token, we got a very high vote at the time.
And is there an increased awareness of the importance of the European seats now? Is that becoming more in people's mindset with Brexit and all the talk about Europe and the border and obviously everything that's happening over in London this week?
You see, going back to '94, European Parliament didn't have co-responsibility, and as the years went on, now the European Parliament plays a hugely important role. It has the same responsibility as the Commission and the.
So, Brendan, Thomas, you're listening to Pat the Coke Gallagher there, seasoned campaigner. He's been down that road before. He was here at 9:15 this morning saying the writing's on the wall for Fianna Fáil's European election hopes, and he's blaming the structure of the convention. And look, obviously there'll be a post-mortem, there'll be a look into this, but when pressed on, everybody being dragged to Longford and in, out, there you go. That's no way to have a convention. That's not what local politics is about. Is that where this went wrong?
Possibly convention was the start of a downward trend. The second thing, in my view, that was an issue is that we failed to connect with the electorate on issues. We didn't distill our message to the electorate. Now, someone could easily just say the same to me in relation to the Green Party, but they clicked at the last minute. They had a terrific debate. They had a very good candidate that really caught the imagination of the voter in the media performances. And on this occasion, there is a swing towards the Green Party. And for the party, we have to look at this.
And to bring it back to, I suppose, Micheál Martin, this is an important election for him. The structural change that there has been in Fianna Fáil over the last number of years in terms of how the party is run and managed. Have you taken a wrong turn?
Well, in terms of European elections, for the last 4 European elections, we haven't been successful. We haven't had an MEP here in this constituency, nor have we had one in Dublin since 2009. We're not good at getting the European message across of what Fianna Fáil stands for, as opposed to any other party. And we're paying a price for that. This is the second time in the Midlands Northwest we won't have an MEP. There's a possibility we may win a seat in Dublin. But as I say, the difficulty for us as a party is getting the sufficiently high-profile candidate that can gel with the voters and get the message of what we are in a European context.
But when Pat the Coke Gallagher said, well, back in his day, when he was, treading those hustings, he went and he burnt the shoe leather. Mm-hmm. He sat down with every councillor. He went parish to parish, pump to pump, and he sat down and he made time. And, did Anne Rabbitte do that? Did
the first thing
Brendan Smith do that?
The first thing that was wrong, our convention was at least 4 months too late. We didn't select our candidate until March. And when you consider the fact there's 13 counties that would have to be covered by this candidate, it just physically wasn't possible. And then couple that with the reality, and I'm accepting it's now a reality, that we just did not click with the voters. Our message in the context of what we were standing for in this European election, what we were standing for in this European Parliament, wasn't there.
Were
It
there
wasn't
other
sufficiently clear.
Were there other candidates that were before convention? As you look back now with the perfect vision of hindsight, as you look back at that candidate selection process, were there other candidates?
Well, I always thought we had a very strong candidate here in Donegal in Niall Blaney. I thought that a Donegal candidate on this occasion might have an advantage with Marion Harkin not running in Leitrim. I thought there was a gap there.
She left it late enough in the day
She
before
did.
she let people know that.
So I thought there was a gap there that could have been filled easily by Fianna Fáil had we a northwest-based candidate. That is immaterial talking about it now because we choose to pick one from Cavan and then we added one from East Galway. But I think the fundamental point is that we haven't grasped what it takes to win a seat in the northwest. You need a high-profile candidate with an extra dynamic that connects with the people, and we need a clear message. Now, up to this election, I would have said that there was possibly an audience out there for a more anti-European candidate. It mightn't necessarily be the case because Luke Ming Flanagan is struggling there, but I think he's going to retain his seat.
And Peter Casey is galloping
Yes.
into irrelevancy with this election, from
So
what we can say.
he's in an awful rush there already. But the reality is, and it's going back to the point I probably said it around 10 to 10 this morning, what do we want out of a European election? What is it that we're voting for in a European election? And I made the point that I could safely say 40% of the people that voted in a European election yesterday went in there and decided at the last minute, as opposed to 10% in the council election. Because
Thomas-
it's not relevant to a lot
Thomas,
of people.
You're an independent. Can I call you Eurosceptic?
Yeah.
Should you have been on the ballot paper? Would you have been that candidate to Ron Poem here and close that gap?
No, definitely not. I mean, I wouldn't put myself forward for a European election because I think Brendan's right. You do need a profile, and it needs to be a national profile, and national recognition is vitally important. And I think that's a lot to do with the Fianna Fáil, how they didn't do it this time round. And Ming does have that national profile, and he is known nationally, so that stands to him through the campaign. And what's Sarah McHugh then is probably the argument against that, and in the terms of that she's very locally based and she came through into a good performance at the end. But I don't know how that'll actually develop in terms of the count. We'll have to see how that moves on. But I think you'd have to question, like, it's not for me to say for Fianna Fáil and Fianna Fáil. Like,
Sure, it won't stop you. We don't mind if you say you want to give Brendan some advice there.
But you'd have to wonder, like,
with the rest.
you'd have to wonder, like, I mean, the candidate's doing well in North on his own, but the candidate for the European election isn't doing well. So it shows maybe the relevance of the Fianna Fáil vote as well, and I suppose the traditional vote and that traditional party systems are breaking down right across the country, and that's vitally important, I think, for the future.
And you obviously, as an independent, see that as an opportunity if that traditional party structure is breaking down.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think so, and I would like to think that maybe I had some role in making that happen as well in Donegal, in terms of the Donegal electoral area and that there, and I think that's important, because I think that people deserve, when they vote, they deserve the candidates that they want to go out and work on their behalf. And that's what they have
previous
to do.
to Tom Gilday, there wasn't an independent vote in Donegal, was there?
Well, Blaney, I suppose, was independent in name.
Independent
From
Fianna
a
Fáil.
gene pool.
And independent Fianna Fáil.
But he was an independent.
I think he'd say you left him rather than he left you, if I'm not
There
mistaken.
was a parting of ways anyway.
There was a part of ways, and there's been a reconciling of that, but it wasn't to be on a European ticket. Brendan, the local elections, and coming back to where we are here now in the Ora Centre, as you said, there have now been the Letterkenny boxes, I think, are opening. We've had Buncrana is open. We have a tally out. Carndonagh, which is a new LEA this time out, and Letterkenny, which is just being opened at the moment and counted. Milford will be next, then Donegal. Just looking at the dynamic of Letterkenny, because it's the largest population centre in County Donegal. It is 7 seats now, where it was 10 seats. Milford has been hived off as this 3-seater. Brendan, I know when we spoke earlier, you said while the 3 seats in Milford might not favour, one would think, an independent that is in. Come back to Letterkenny for a minute first. How do you see things panning out in Letterkenny, and what's the relevance of it to the rest of the county?
Well, it's the urban centre of Donegal.
Mm.
And the first thing, it's a 7-seater. So the last 2 seats there could be filled by someone or other that wasn't in contention on the first count,
Okay.
depending on how the sequence of eliminations continues.